Welcome to my 176th video on my work with OO gauge. In this part I'll be trying to finally complete the setup of the Hornby Dublo 3-rail travelling post office set that I bought, and then of course testing and running the TPO coach with the TPO equipment. Here's the TPO set as it came, complete and boxed and appearing almost new in condition. It even still had the tag from the tester at Meccano's Binns Road factory in Liverpool attached to the post for the mailbags. The Dublo 3-rail TPO set is very different from the later design that we're used to from more modern TPO model sets. The more recent versions work by having levers underneath the coach, which are pushed up by ramps placed on the track between the rails, so opening the doors to pick up and drop off mailbags. The Dublo version does not use levers underneath the coach. Its doors are opened electrically from within the coach, and the power for the solenoids to open the doors comes from the special track which carries all of the TPO line-side equipment. I installed this special track, seen here, into the front straight of my Dublo 3-rail tabletop railway some time ago, but I didn't make any attempt to test the TPO itself at that time. I just joined the TPO track into the front straight as I knew that was where I wanted to have it. Now in this video I'll be completing the setup and testing of the TPO equipment. Here is page 1 of the instructions for the Dublo 3-rail TPO set. The instructions were the one thing that was missing from the set that I bought, but I was able to download them from Charles Cooper's Railway Pages site. You might want to pause the video and read these instructions. Basically, the TPO equipment track needs to be supplied with its own power, separate from the power operating the trains. The power for the TPO equipment may be AC or DC between 12 and 15 volts. Power is not applied to the TPO track continuously. The push-button switch that comes with the TPO set is wired into one of the lines from the power supply, and power will only be sent to the TPO track when that push-button is pressed. I figured that I would mount the push-button switch on the front of the tabletop. I didn't need a lot of wire to reach from the contacts on the TPO track to the edge of the table. I cut a piece of 2-strand wire long enough to make the connection with some slack. To power the TPO track, I decided to use an adapter I had on hand which provided 12 volts DC up to 1 amp. This is the same power adapter that I previously used to test the Hornby Dublo controller that came with my Duchess of Atholl train set, but I'm not using it for that anymore, as although it would get locomotives to move, that arrangement didn't really work very well. I wanted to pass the wires through the tabletop just beside the contacts on the TPO equipment track. That position was beyond the edge of the folding table that supports my 3-rail setup, so that the tabletop at that point was formed only from 2 layers of foam. The black foam matting sitting on top, supported by 1.5 inches of white foam insulation underneath. Rather than drilling through the foam, I just pushed a spike through. First a sharp, round file, as seen here. I did this rather than drilling, as I've drilled through foam before, and it makes a terrible mess, shredding the foam as it goes. Here you can see the pointed file passing right through both layers of foam and coming out underneath. Then I enlarged the hole by pushing larger tools through, up to this Phillips screwdriver. I used a Phillips screwdriver because it was somewhat pointed and it didn't have any enlargement at the head end. Next I needed to prepare the wiring. I got my soldering station and helping hand out on the bench and started by stripping and tinning the ends of the wires. I put a piece of shrink wrap on the end of one of the wires from the power supply and then soldered the end of that wire to one of the wires that would be going to the TPO track. Then I slid the shrink wrap down over the join and heated it to fix it around, protecting and insulating the join. I tinned the other ends of the wires that would be going to the TPO track to make it easier to pass them through the hole in the foam and attach them to the contacts on the TPO track. By twisting together the ends of those wires temporarily, I was able to push them up through the hole that I made in the foam. You can see them coming up through the hole there beside the TPO track. Then those wires were bent around the contacts on the TPO track and the knurled knobs were screwed down to hold the wires. This was a bit fiddly and I found that I needed to use needle nose pliers to help. The switch was then connected with the wire from the TPO track to one contact and the wire from the power supply to the other. Then I attached the switch to the edge of the tabletop. I used 2 of the 2mm screws that I bought, hoping to use them to fix down my track. This was the first time that I actually tried screwing these screws into the black foam, and I was pleased to find that they seemed to go in and hold quite well. So now I had my wiring set up. I just needed to plug in the adapter and turn on the power. I railed up the TPO coach with the side with the doors and the electrical contact facing the TPO equipment. At least I got that right, but as you'll see I then proceeded to get several things wrong. Here's the TPO coach on the track beside the TPO equipment. The mailbags were still in their Ziploc bag at this point, sitting in the collection bin. Here's a close-up of the electrical contact that protrudes from the side of the TPO coach. This contacts the special rail on the TPO equipment track as seen here to provide the power for operation of the pick-up and drop-off openings in the coach. As you can see here, the contact barely reaches the rail, but of course it wouldn't be helpful if the contact stuck out a long way, as then it would likely snag on other things and derail the coach. I pressed the push button briefly, you don't want to risk burning things out. This was with the coach just standing stationary with its contact touching the rail. The openings did indeed flip open when the button was pressed, as seen here, which confirmed that the electrics of the coach were functioning properly. As seen here, the upper opening at the back of the coach is the scoop to pick up bags from the hook. The other opening, the lower flat one just further forward, is the one that will throw bags out into the collection bin. They both open whenever power is passed. The power passes between the special contact track and the regular outer rails, to which the coach is connected by contacts on its wheels. Well, contacts through its axles. It's all a bit complicated, and the TPO coach is quite a heavy item. Here's page 2 of the instructions dealing with how to operate the TPO coach and equipment once you've got everything connected up. I read all of this carefully, but I still managed to get 1 or 2 items wrong on my first attempts. The first problem that I had was that I could barely pull the TPO coach round the tracks with a locomotive. As mentioned, the coach is a heavy item. I took it to the bench and got it into the servicing cradle. Note that, as seen here, when the coach is upside down, the operating doors automatically open just because of the way they're weighted without the application of any power. This means that if you get a bag stuck in it, you can get it out by holding it upside down and shaking it a bit. I oiled the ends of the coach axles to try to get them to run a bit more freely. This did worry me a bit, as the coach relies on pickup through the ends of the axles to get one side of its power connection. You can see here the wire going into the interior of the coach. That wire is connected to the metal piece in which the axles are pivoted. Oiling the axles did make the coach run more freely, and I was able to run it round the layout much better after that. Here it is at the back of the layout behind my original Duchess of Atholl. But here I have made mistake 1. Can you spot it? Here are the little mailbags that go with the TPO set. They are quite heavy. I don't think the little plastic ones that are used with the later lever-operated TPOs would work with this arrangement. These are made of metal. As I understand, the set only ever came with 2 bags, and that is what I received. You can see here how the handles of the bags are made to hang on the hook for pickup. I hung a bag on the hook for my first attempt at pickup. Then I realized that I had the train going round the layout in the wrong direction for pickup. Obviously, the TPO coach must pass the hook going in the direction that the hook points in order to be able to sweep the bag off the hook. That was mistake 1. So I took the train round the reversing loop so that it could go the other way. That was, in a sense, mistake 2. I was having some problems with the locomotive derailing, which didn't help. I did improve one connection in the left-hand loop between two of the track pieces, but that didn't remove all of the problems. None of my track is fixed down yet. I will need to check everything again and then start fixing down the track soon, and hopefully that will make for smoother running. Here is mistake 2 made clear. The train is now running in the correct direction past the TPO equipment after going round the reversing loop, but now the TPO equipment on the coach is on the wrong side, facing away from the trackside TPO equipment. As you can see here, there wasn't a lot of clearance between the Duchess of Atholl and the suspended mailbag, but there was enough clearance for things to work, if I'd had the coach the right way round. I changed over from using the Duchess of Atholl to using the 264 tank in hopes that it would have less derailing problems. The TPO coach never derailed. Well, it is quite heavy. I still hadn't realised about mistake 2, so I still had the doors on the TPO coach facing outwards. Finally, I realised my mistake and re-railed the coach the right way round, with its openings on the same side as the trackside equipment, and I now have the train going the correct way, so mistakes 1 and 2 have both been corrected, and it should now be possible to pick up and drop off mailbags. I did manage to pick up a bag and then to drop it off in the collection bin. The pickup actually worked the first time once I had the train right, but it took me a couple of tries to get the drop-off to work. You only press the button basically just as you press the button whilst the coach is going past the TPO equipment to operate the doors and drop off and pick up. So now I'll try to show you some video of the TPO equipment in operation. Oh yeah, I'm going to see if I can demonstrate this and film it, but it's going to be tricky to say the least. Okay, so we hang a bag on there, right? We hang a bag on there, and right now the contact for the TPO is on there, so if I press the TPO button, the thing's open, because this isn't really going to do anything at the moment. Okay, so let's try and get the train moving and see if I can get it to go round without, famous last words, without derailing. If I can get the train to go all the way around without derailing, we'll try and pick that bag up. Okay, here we come. Press the button. Yes. Okay, here we come. Press the button. Yes. We got a pickup there. Now, getting the drop-off, I find, is actually more difficult than getting the pickup. I don't know whether I can get the drop-off, but I can try. Oh no, well I can't because the train's derailed. Okay, attempt 2 at seeing if I can manage to coordinate things to get a drop-off without the confounded train derailing. Yes! Yes! Success. That was a drop-off. I don't know how well it came out on the video, but it did drop it off.